It's the 2nd of February 2022. I said January 2021. It's the 2nd of February 2022. Welcome, everybody. We got a poll tonight. I'm breathing a little heavy here because I've been running trying to catch up. We got the quad back today. Wow. And we got videos of that at the end coming at the end of the show tonight. Whew, let's get after it. We got lots and lots and lots and lots of news to cover. And here we go. Alrighty, so the International Atomic Energy Agency is not who they claim they are, obviously, and they need to be replaced. Climate change, EU moves to label nuclear and gas as sustainable, which is what we've been covering almost every show for the last number of shows because of the... And they show you a nuclear power plant surrounded by a farm. It's outrageous. It's unbelievably outrageous that most nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. That should terrify every human on the planet. Starting to catch my breath here. One thing I noticed about me is it's pretty rare over the last decade for me to be late, even by a minute. And so it takes a lot of commitment, right, to get everything right. I had to huff it out there to get the battery for the camera, just for the show live. Austria's chancellor responded to the news by saying nuclear power is neither green nor sustainable. And I cannot understand the decision of the EU, which is inappropriate, very polite. You got to learn to speak out more harshly. It's not a crime to speak out harshly against evil. And nuclear is evil. There's not a facet of nuclear that can be considered good. This decision is wrong. The EU Commission today agreed its greenwashing program for nuclear energy. So the EU Commission agreed it's greenwashing. So what's the point of having taxonomy, which is supposed to direct money to environmentally sustainable energies, when you're just going to waste your money on scum degenerate nuclear? Fight over Africa's sole nuclear plant. There's so much controversy over this stupid nuclear power plant in Africa. Just year after year, non-stop controversies around this genocide machine in Africa. The South African energy minister is being sued following suspensions of a national nuclear regulator board member who was an independent oversight. They got rid of him that afternoon. The same day they got rid of him, they wouldn't give him a disclosure of what they were up to, so they just fired him, and then they released the disclosure amongst themselves for a lifetime extension on a... Well, see, the problem with the African... One of the major problems was they didn't collect money for decommissioning. They stole that, and it went to the shareholders. So when they finally do shut it down, guess who's going to be... And Africa can't afford to be robbed like that by the nuclear industry, because that's what the nuclear industry does. It just robs everybody of their futures and all species of their future. On the same day that Becker was suspended, Eskom received a regulatory, which is captured industry, permission to replace the aging equipment at the fragile, brittle nuclear power plant China inks an $8 billion nuclear power plant deal in Argentina. And so we noticed since Fukushima that the nuclear industry has tried to proliferate nuclear in impoverished countries and countries that actually don't even need it. Like China, if you want to build your own nuclear power plants in your country, fine, but don't take that technology and destroy other countries. Gut up. If you're going to bomb Argentina, go bomb it yourself with a missile or something. Don't do it by poisoning them in increments with a nuclear power plant, you scumbags. You piece of scum, degenerate China. Reviving a deal that has been stalled for years. The only reason you're giving China's giving or helping Argentina with nuclear power plants is because they want to poison them with radiation fallout. Nuclear power is clean, safe, and cheap. This is our old sleeper cell double agent for the nuclear industry, Xeon Lights. What a despicable thing she done. And then she got scooped because she's such a scumbag. Michael Shellenberger's Environmental Progress snatched her up. A monster hangs out with monsters. Big surprise, right? And think about that framing there, global heating. It's only been the last 10 months or something that we've seen that narrative show up, global heating, which is caused by radioactive fallout from Fukushima and other nuclear sources, of course. The fuel pools around the world are hemorrhaging or splitting the atom into the environment. There's no containment. It's unbelievable, the scam, and there's no one out there will call them on it. It's just unbelievable. But this is a fallout depiction based upon 20 days. If you let the model run for another 20 days, the rest of the planet disappears. And the model only includes venting. It's not actually including the detonations at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. And what it turned out to do, that's an extinction event. And so we've done major research expeditions that quantify those statements. Nuclear power is clean, safe, and cheap. She says, I should call her, I'm a climate activist. Really? And you're associated with environmental progress, and you have the arrogance to say you're a climate activist. The argument made against nuclear power today are the same arguments the double agent was making a decade ago, and she claims she was wrong. She said, I've been a climate activist for over a decade. I was arrested once for protesting tar sands and again for protesting coal. And in 2018, I was one of the main spokespeople for Extinction Rebellion. Right? And she admitted in an interview with Michael Shellenberger that she persuaded the United Kingdom's branch of Extinction Rebellion not to protest nuclear power plants. They were literally laughing about it in the interview. And founder of a print newspaper, The Hourglass. And in 2015, she authored an evidence-based book on green parenting. Listen, environmental progress pays really well for people like her. She's been put on a pedestal throughout Great Britain now, and Australia and New Zealand. Xeon Lights is a science communicator known for her fake environmental advocacy work, and she's the founder. And this cracks me up. Now, she started up this group known as Emergency Reactor. Emergency Reactor. It takes 12, 15 years to build one. But it's that connotation, see, to the layperson who doesn't know any better, which is what they're counting on. They're not trying to have a debate with someone like me or you, because there's no way they can win that one. They want people that are naive and complacent. But she started that group up after she was picked up by Environmental Progress, which is a nuclear lobbying group. She's an actual nuclear lobbyist and not a very good person at all. I think her children should be taken away from her personally. And a keen astronomer. Really? You're so worried about the environment, you're looking off into space, are you? And she gave a TED talk on stargazing. Wow, wow, wow. Way to fight for the planet. Staring into the stars like a child, eh? Since I started talking about... Now, there's nothing wrong with staring into space, but it is if you're a hardcore environmentalist. You only got one kick at this planet, and you best make the best of it, which is what we do here. Since I started talking about nuclear positively, I've been accused of being an industry shill, and I have never taken money from the nuclear industry. No, Michael Shellenberg, which is the lobbyist. No one takes money from the nuclear industry unless they're employed by it. There's a lot of people gets money from the pro-nuclear movement, though. She's not doing all this because she's stupid. She knows better than what she's claiming. It had a clean product that required little and compared with the alternatives and doesn't cause air pollution as climate change. This is absurd to suggest that man-made anthropogenic radiation is clean and doesn't cause climate change. Of course, it's the biggest carbon emitter and producer on the planet, period. Like because there's so many facets of nuclear, and there's so much waste in nuclear, is despicable. You know, an industry 75 years matured, hasn't even tried to come up with a solution, and its only solution is able to articulate is the garbage can diagnosis of, we'll dig a hole and stick it down there. The industry also provides green jobs, really. Again, it doesn't sound like she wrote the story at all. It 100% sounds exactly what you expect to hear from Michael Shellenberg himself. These are the exact narratives we're used to Michael Shellenberg use, not Xeon Light. In fact, you have to be extremely articulate in this subject to write an article like she did, and she doesn't have the pedigree to write these types of articles. There is a scientific consensus from the pro-nuclear industry, of course, that we need nuclear power to address climate change. How can you address climate change with nuclear when nuclear is climate change? This model here is 16 days of radioactive fallout from Japan. That section right there. I mean, that's the Pacific Ocean, that's the Atlantic Ocean, that's the whole planet covered in radiation in 16 days. Gas, oil, and coal emissions don't do that. You take Xeon Light down to Fukushima and drag her towards reactor 3, the mixed oxide fuel stump they got left down there. She'll claw your eyes out. She'll pick up a rock and beat your brains out to get away from going there. She'll cut your throat rather than you have her drag her there. She's not stupid. She said, when I was anti-nuclear, which is a double agent. She's a double agent. My main concern was safety and waste. I later learned nuclear power is slightly less safe than wind, hydro, and solar. This is absurd. This is an absurd suggestion or assertion. And more importantly, she says it's vastly safer than any fossil fuel energy. Really. So if a coal plant breaks down, it's not going to cover the whole planet in emissions. If a coal plant breaks down, you're not going to have to think about evacuating Tokyo. If an oil plant breaks down, you're not going to have to think about all the children being poisoned and all, like oil and gas and coal emissions don't cover the planet. They don't pulse energy every second for millions of years. I just think that people like that they should be put into a psychiatric unit because they're very dangerous people out spreading propaganda. That's pure propaganda. She said, almost everything I believed about the waste turned out to be wrong. And many people think of Sellafield in regards to waste management. This is actually a nuclear weapons facility where spent fuel is reprocessed. It's well managed and has never harmed anybody. We've actually done presentations on Sellafield. First off, Sellafield had a mixed oxide fuel meltdown in the 50s. It's still hemorrhaging 8 million litres a day into the Atlantic Ocean. It's one of the biggest farm districts in the United Kingdom for vegetables and stuff like that. And it's hemorrhaging radiation. In fact, Sellafield has polluted the Arctic and the Atlantic along with La Hague in France. And that there's cancer clusters in Colombia, which is right alongside of Sellafield. The apologists like her are trying to blame it on the flu. The children got leukemia cancer clusters in their neighborhoods, and of course that's caused by the flu. Like, it's so outrageous, it's so disturbing, it's so disingenuous, it's so dishonest, it's so deceitful, it's incredibly deceptive. She says nuclear waste was stored in dry storage casks, thick blocks of cement at the Daiichi nuclear power plant in Fukushima, Japan, and they were completely undamaged, despite being hit by a tsunami and an earthquake. And if you go back through my playlist, you'll see I've done a 5-part video on pictures that were originally released by TEPCO, around 1,900 of them. And that was a recent set of videos. The site is completely destroyed, and that the cast was right down there by the ocean. So what she forgets to acknowledge is that the nuclear power plants themselves are actually completely destroyed, with decades of reactor cores missing. That's reactor 3 to your left and reactor 4 to your right. I mean, and here's another direction. It's completely gone. It's completely gone, destroyed. Decades of reactor cores and reactors. But she wants to talk about the dry cast. Xeon Light, she's the second one from your left. And who's the third one from her left? Is that scumbag on YouTube? Excuse me, I'm drinking a bit of water. We got a poll up tonight. Hi, everybody. Should nuclear regulators have to work at Fukushima nuclear meltdowns? I think the one tomorrow night will be, should Xeon Light have to work at Fukushima nuclear meltdown? We got 20 votes, 95% that nuclear regulator. I think that's a great idea. Nuclear regulators working at Fukushima nuclear meltdown. Like, really, that's a pretty good idea. That's a legitimate idea. Yeah, the third from the left is, we know that's scumbag. And the second from the left, the world will know that's scumbag in the near future. And there's her criminal partners. And this is a climate emergency caused by radiation, caused by nuclear meltdowns, caused by 1,000 fuel pools worldwide still splitting the atoms into the environment. This new company is betting big on nuclear power in America. Exxon is spinning off its Constellation unit, which is a new facet of it, which might need more federal aid for carbon-free power to prosper. So that's pretty great, isn't it? You start up a company, then the government just throws money at you. Whether you win, lose, or draw, they just throw money at you. How much would it cost to reduce the global warming? 131 trillion. Which is Constipated Party, COPs 26, United Nations, the nuclear sawhorse estimate. We covered 13 days of it last year, right? And so this is because of nuclear. Global warming is caused by... I'll give you a better example of it. See, coal, oil, and gas emissions don't cover the planet. This model is from France. The model is not based on the actual inventories. But what you're seeing is a 16-day model. And this is Europe, and the Atlantic Ocean over there is the Pacific, the entire planet covered in radiation from nuclear meltdowns. And for anybody to suggest that that has no adverse effects upon the bacteria in the forest or the insects or the animals and mammals and birds and humans is not silly, it's criminal. To suggest that that didn't happen, that doesn't mean nothing if it did happen, the radiation is harmless, is why we're in this problems, because everybody sat silent for 75 years and let them regurgitate those narratives, to the point where this generation probably believes those narratives. The standalone company called Constellations operates the nation's largest fleet of nuclear power plants and has plans for future growth by acquisition. This is really interesting. I didn't know that about Exxon. Could small nuclear reactors help protect the climate? Of course they can't. Do you really think small nuclear reactors can fix the death of the Pacific Ocean caused by Japan's nuclear meltdowns? Anybody think that? Is anybody that gullible? They could be deployed quickly and cheaply. Oh, crap, not again. They don't even exist. They keep regurgitating the same narrative as if this is the first time anybody's ever heard of them. My God, they can be deployed quickly and cheaply. Than a traditional nuclear power plant. Yeah, of course, they're smaller. But they don't exist. You won't even have a model because the International Energy Agency says by 2026 there will be 4,800 gigawatts of renewables on the planet. And that's the equivalent of 5,500 nuclear power plants in just the next 5 years. Last year, in 2021, there was 333 nuclear power plants where the renewables came online. 333 nuclear power plants worth of renewables and energy-wise came online in 12 months. And, this is the same fight every day. We go through that. If we took half the energy that you're putting into these fake modular reactors that won't exist for decades and put that same people to work on pump compressed air storage for big mine shafts underground where you compress air down to it. It's well-known technology. And pumped hydro and geothermal energy and tidal zone energy, because the tide is consistent going that way for 6 hours, and it goes the other way for 6 hours. And you can predict it out for 3, 4, 5, 600 years. And then with geothermal, you don't need sun or wind to work either one of those. So instead of batteries, you can have those two for backups for wind and solar, plus you can have compressed air storage from pumped hydro. That's certainly the proper solution. That's the real simple, and it's still cheaper than a nuclear power plant. Oh, Idaho National Laboratory, we should have known. Because they need funding, right? So they come out with these fantasy stories. Wind and solar and nuclear power do not emit carbon pollution. But like every single day, we got to listen to that sentence. Day in, day out, with that perpetual lie, story after story after story. It's rarely we get a single story where they don't say that. Let me bring up it's absurd how much stuff I have gathered up, isn't it? There we go. You actually got to struggle. You got to struggle. Okay, here we go. So, like, first off, that guy right there with the blue shirt on, that's that guy right there. Right? You know who the shoe bomber is, or diaper bomber, right? That's his twin brother from the United Kingdom. His despicable, disgusting parasite. Now, Xeon Light and him both claim that man-made radiation is like walking in sunshine, or is like the uranium-238 from the rocks, or is like bananas and potato chips. But you don't have, your Geiger counter doesn't go off for sunlight. Your Geiger counter doesn't go off for bananas and potato chips. And if your Geiger counter is going off and these ships are out there just dumping it in the ocean. That's a United Kingdom ship. All they do is drive around dumping radiation in the ocean year after year after year for 3 decades. And they have the incredible hubris to claim that it's carbon free. So people who call it carbon free should go tell these people how carbon free nuclear is. And go right on 60 million one-ton bags like this here of radiation in Japan, that Dana Durnford is wrong. Or right on the bag, nuclear is carbon-free. And I guarantee you won't get very far before somebody comes by and kicks you out of there. Go right on all of these bags, Dana is wrong. Look. Go right on that bag. All these bags here, Dana is wrong. Nuclear is carbon-free. Go right on all of those bags that nuclear is wrong. Dana is carbon-free. Go right on all of these 30 million one-ton bags. Go right 30 million times that Dana is wrong. Up to 500,000 tons of sulfur from coal, 300,000 tons of oil, 200,000 tons from natural gas of waste. And they say, in contrast, 100 megawatt nuclear power releases no gas or other pollutants. In fact, just Fukushima dwarfs all oil, gas, and coal waste in history. And then the nuclear industry, think of thousands of pictures like this from different parts of the world, where they put barrels in the ground, where you know where that's going to go, right into the water tables. And you also know where it's going to go, eventually going to come back up through liquefaction in the wintertime and spring. And the ultimate insult, look, decades and decades of doing that. Not just dumping it from ships, they're dumping it everywhere. And then Xeon Light should have got this job here, because that would have killed her that day. They definitely would have died that day wearing paper suits while you're in spraying regions at a nuclear meltdown to try to bond with the fuel pellets and pieces to stop them from splitting the atom into the environment. This person would have died that day with a paper suit on. Not even a Scotty backpack. These uranium mines are bigger than coal, oil, and gas combined on top of that. And uranium mines, there's 15,000 in Navajo abandoned, and that they all have these chemical ponds that are left to evaporate or dissipate or overflow from rain and everything else into the environment. That they use the most sophisticated technology on the planet for uranium, and the whole process of just getting the fuel. It's absurd. It's absurdly expensive and time-consuming and resource-intensive. It's absurd how much goes into it. It dwarfs any kind of processing for oil, gas, or anything else. But this legacy here that's absurd. Chemical ponds. They used to shoot the birds that lands in those ponds, by the way. 15,000 abandoned uranium mines. Not only that, when they dump it in the ground, all of these communities, you can't even drink the water in the communities. Not from coal, oil, or gas, but because of the despicable nuclear industry's legacy. For their revolting legacy. There's what nuclear is really good at. You help them out, they stab you in the back. Not only that, nuclear's legacy, you see all these dots? Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Great Falls. All of these dots are silos, nuclear missile silos in farmland on top of that, in communities where they're holding the communities as human shields. So that if Russia or China attacked one of their missiles, they destroy a community. The media will go, Russia just attacked a small community in northeastern United States today. They're not going to say they attacked a missile silo in a community, but they'll say they attacked the community. And are we going to let our boys be victims like this? Or are we going to nuke them back? Everybody in the nuclear industry should be fired and replaced. Everybody. There's no genuine people in the nuclear industry whatsoever. Last year, this story came at a time of reckoning for social media, which is not stories I typically read, by the way. But here's one of the sentences. Nuclear power has the risk of destroying the planet. 3 million children, says two Danas, 3 million children require treatment because of Chernobyl. Many will die prematurely. That's going to be permanent. You don't get better from radiation sickness. You get worse. Imagine if you owned that supermarket and you had to abandon it. Would you call it nuclear carbon free at that stage? They actually dropped those barrels on the boats. Dropped them on the boats. You can see on the deck there, they're dressed in their paper suits. That can't protect you. Driving around the ocean, dropping it into the ocean. They don't hire people like Xeon Light and her cronies to go in the nuclear. They hired the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants who don't speak the language. They dress alpha, beta, gamma up as superheroes so that they can brainwash our children. They target our children with propaganda. There's nothing like it on the entire planet. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting, despicable, hateful, vicious, spineless, soulless, coward industry. And everybody that we see speaking out in favor of nuclear has these same attributes. Incredible cowards, unbelievably perpetual liars, and soulless and spineless and heartless. If your coal plant breaks down, you don't run away and leave your animals to starve to death. If your oil plant breaks down, you don't run away and leave your animals to starve to death. If your gas plant breaks down, you don't run away and leave your animals to starve to death. You don't run away and leave your graveyards and schools and universities and communities and everything else behind to rot. Anybody who calls it carbon-free is a scum, degenerate coward who doesn't have a real debate, doesn't have a real narrative. The amount of energy produced by wind and solar fluctuates, and large nuclear reactors are expensive and time-consuming. So researchers are working on small nuclear reactors that could be deployed faster and at a lower cost. Of course, they don't exist. So why not? Because you got to develop the whole technology from beginning to end. So why not just develop renewable technologies which are incredibly easy to deploy? You can lift your head, you can look your grandchildren in the eyes when you get older. U.S. defends to its workforce, to its slaves, the nuclear war can be won. Yeah? Who wins that one? The weapons manufacturer? And that's about it, right? Nobody else wins. But the arrogance to say something that, mind you, this is from the Bulletin of the Unconcerned Atomic Scientists, created by the Manhattan Project as controlled opposition and is still on a pedestal today. And the crazies are back. Look at this. Driving 1 million kilometers without recharging the nuclear car. Wow, that's the best glass of water I ever had. Driving 1 million kilometers without recharging the nuclear car. Yeah, let's make everything nuclear. What could possibly go wrong? Well, how to make an impossible nuclear reactor, 3D printer sold separately. So, of course, this is the major... this is ultra-safe nuclear to Washington. They're incredible degenerates, all of them that work for them. Ultrasafe is nothing but scumbags. Incredible scumbags on top of that. Oh, and Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Like, you know, Oak Ridge National Laboratory is... When you think of nuclear, you can't think of nuclear without thinking of Oak Ridge National Laboratory or Los Alamos National Laboratory or the rest of them. But these are death factories. These are disease factories. Their entire legacy has polluted their part of the country. There's nobody there with redeeming qualities. A White House push to help Wyoming towns go nuclear is cautiously embraced. Embraced! They pushed that through. That literally ran through all the committees. Yeah. Oh, nuclear? Yeah, I'll vote yes. It's nuclear. Like, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd how quick this went through and got a yes vote. One struggling Wyoming coal town is betting its future on nuclear power. With an unlikely partner, Bill Gates. Bill Gates ain't going to show up at work every day, or even once a year. He lent his name to the project because it's a scumbag industry, and that's what he specializes in. It's hard to accept it for some people to think Bill Gates is a good person, but you never done any homework, did you? Endgame, Iran nuclear talks nearing resolution on nuclear crisis. U.S. warns. Endgame. U.S. warns. And now we've seen this how many times in the last 2 years? 300, 400 times? A senior State Department official, a senior lapdog is telling reporters the end game is just weeks away. After 10 months of negotiating with two different Iranian governments, the country's nuclear program is advancing to the point of no return. First off, the United States has 49 military bases on the border of Iran with chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, carrying out electronic warfare, land, sea, air embargoes. The country is a prisoner. It's absurd. America going broke because they can't get their military out of everybody's business. Iran is now a matter of weeks away from having enough fissile material to build a nuclear bomb, the degenerates said. And I mean, America's got them surrounded with nuclear weapons. Bennett, we hope Vienna nuclear talks conclude without an agreement. This is Israeli. We don't want an agreement. The Israel Prime Minister warned the removal of sanctions will flood Iranian regime with billions of dollars. Because they're not allowed to have their own money, right? They're not allowed to have their money. Of course, Israel can't exist without billions of dollars every year from America. Israel, the world's biggest welfare state, and the third biggest producer of weapons and misery on the planet. Like, they were supposed to go there and set up their homeland, and they went there and they started a weapons production facility, and they're the third biggest in the world. They're a producer of misery and agony. And they're whining and sniveling and crying constantly that the world doesn't give them all $100 million each. Nuclear power startup proposes a ship-based green ammonia plant floating Chernobyl using nuclear, and then the product that comes out is green. I mean, this industry is insane. It's actually insane. The people in the nuclear industry literally have the capacity of a child at best. I've never seen an actual debate. All you see them is debating one of their counterparts. I'm sorry, their controlled opposition that they created themselves. Imagine putting me into a debate with these types of people on live TV. Game over for the nuclear industry. Reactor tech startup Core Power. Like, it probably took them 6 years to come up with that name. Is joining the call for the mass productions of renewable fuel using floating nuclear power plants. Renewable fuel, rather. You can't make renewables from nuclear because the releases into the environment are catastrophic for all 8 million species. America isn't ready for Russia's battlefield nuclear weapons. Really? You really believe that? You got any idea how many nuclear weapons America got at its fingertips? More than enough to keep stupid moron dictator Putin. Like, Russia and America and China need each other, and they needed North Korea. They needed to have boogeymen. Otherwise, the military can't go out of control like they got right now. Imagine, you can't, people say they're going to join the military. You don't join the military because you can't quit. It's not like Walmart where you get the boss is evil and you say, no, I'm going to go work somewhere else. Have a nice day. In the Navy, you go to jail for doing that. You can't quit your job. So it's not a job. You're a slave. Because they know once you join it and see what's really going on, you won't want to be there. Once you realize how evil they are, you're not going to want to be there. So you're not allowed to quit. The nuclear sting in North Korea's tail. First off, North Korea, which was destroyed by United Nations in the 50s, flattened, they burnt down every community. The United Nations attacked the women and children of North Korea nonstop. Right? When they went to war, they didn't go to war against the men, they went to war against the women and children. They burnt down every village with napalm. Over 10 million injured, millions dead, millions missing. And South Korea was no angel. South Korea executed tens of thousands of sympathizers for South Koreans that were sympathizers of North Korea. Executed them. The police department did that. Bruce Power, man, like every day now, Bruce Power has got propaganda full steam ahead. Revolting. They're like safe nuclear power company. They're just despicable. They're despicable. Nuclear Innovation Institute is not a nuclear innovation institute at all. It's a crime syndicate. We've seen no innovation from them whatsoever since they existed. Created by the industry for the industry. So now they're talking about fusion energy and clean energy frontier regions of Bruce, Gray, and Hurons. So here's Bruce Power, like the nuclear power company, talking about fusion energy. This is the first time we've actually heard him talk about fusion energy. Talking about fusion energy as if it's right around the corner. So they see a way to scoop $10 or $15 million, right? And this is what they're up to. Or $1 billion, I should say. And this is what they're actually up to. They can't even deal with the waste that they got already from nuclear power plants. It's unbelievable. How are we going to have a future for the species and humanity with this creature on our planet? Entered into a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on accelerating the delivery of clean fusion power in Canada is frightening. It's frightening to have the biggest polluters on the planet now claiming that they're going to be the arbiters of our futures. New Mexico debates bill to block spent nuclear fuel storage. Yeah, why put it in Mexico? Anyway, why don't you put it somewhere where there's no people, where there's no fresh water and no connections to the ocean, first off? And why didn't you do it 50 years ago? Why are you waiting for 75 years? By the time you get everything solved and dig a hole, you're talking 2040, 2050. Time he gets everything down into the hole, you're talking 2090. You're not trying. You have no intentions. See, the problem with nuclear fuel is it's splitting the atoms all day long, and that's hemorrhaging into the environment, wiping out all the species. We can't, the species can't sustain this kind of pollution. Nobody can. This is why for 75 years you resisted coming up with a solution. It's so frightening that these people have positions of authority. New Mexico debates bill to block spent nuclear fuel storage. Because this is what they're really good at. They say, well, let's put it over there because they're going to fight us tooth and nail for 20 years. And we're going to lose. Perfect. This stuff will hemorrhage into the environment for another 20 years. Then we got to fight with somebody else for another 20 years. And this is what they've been doing. No intentions of coming up with a solution. They, like Bruce Power in Canada, keeps putting it in farmland. Well, we wanted to put it there in the middle of this beautiful farmland. We bought 1,500 acres last year. And really, you don't think there's going to be any resistance to that? They know there will be. And he said, we're not going to put it if people don't want us to put it there. So first off, they've been trying for 20 years, since they've been created in 2002, which is the industry itself, by the way. And there's no incentive to get rid of it because they get all kinds of money to hang on to it. I think they should be all arrested and jailed for the rest of their life. That'll be an incentive for the next generation to come up with a solution. Everybody's going to voice strong opposition when you want to put it in their communities. EU wants to allow nuclear in green investment. Of course, the EU made this big deal where they're going to come up with a taxonomy and only stuff that actually is going to contribute to a future is going to be allowed. And the first thing they do is walk in their pet lapdog nuclear and say, well, we can't do it without nuclear because we're stupid. We're too stupid to come up with a solution, so we need nuclear. What was the point of a taxonomy if you're going to include the most dirtiest industry in the planet? Which was really, right, meant to babysit France, the despicable scumbag France. France is reliant on nuclear power. The plan seems designed to please the EU's two most powerful nations, one of them being France. The Warren Act did not apply to sudden closures of nuclear plant constructions. So there was 2 nuclear power plants with 4,000 workers got laid off because Westinghouse went bankrupt, right? And Areva also went bankrupt at the same time, which is France, the government of France, no less. And Paladin in Australia got $600 million from Australia government, and 30 days later, they went bankrupt. In 2008, SCANA, an electric and natural gas public utility, along with Santee Cooper, a state-owned electric and water utility, set out to build a nuclear power plant. The project was 2 nuclear reactors at V.C. Summers Nuclear Station in central South Carolina as part of the first new generation nuclear power plants constructed in the US of A in 30 years. And the project would run a further $6 billion over budget and take another 3 years to complete. And Fluor, F-L-U-O-R, took over the project, who just got kicked out of Hanford. And so the 4,000 workers said, well, we didn't get any kind of a warning. So they sued, right? And the judge said, no, you can't sue them because the company went bankrupt and it was unforeseen. It was an unforeseen event. So they got screwed twice, didn't they now? Bill to lift ban on nuclear power heads to the governor's desk. West Virginia lawmakers approved the lifting of a nuclear power ban, but debate continues over the human health criteria for wastewater discharges, continuing discussions from last year's sessions. For the wastewater and the waste, it's still splitting the atom into the environment. It's the worst case scenario that they hid away from you now for 75 years. See, like when you take fuel out of a reactor, or the fuel that's in the reactor, it boils water by splitting atoms, which produces energy, which heats up the water and turns a turbine. And that's basically the basis of nuclear. But the problem was that when you take the fuel out, and because you can only use it for about 14 months, and you put it into what's known as a fuel pond, fuel pool, it's still splitting those atoms. And there's nothing, the pool doesn't contain it because it boils off about 120,000 liters a day. And the idea of the water is it sucks up the isotopes. It boils up through those tall, skinny stacks, and that's released into the community and the environment and the biosphere. And the numbers we're talking about is 2 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. But if you distribute that out and sequester it into 2 million people, that's 2 million cancers down the road. So 2 million atoms is not going to boil this water. So 2 million atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it, and those 2 million atoms can't boil the water. You're going to need hundreds of trillions of atoms to boil my glass of water. When you take it out, it goes into a pool, and the atoms are constantly released into the environment. There's no containment. And how many atoms does it take to boil water for 1 million houses? So the pools were meant to be temporary storage, right? So you're not going to take all the fuel out of the reactor and put it in the pool at one time. When you change fuel, you're going to take out a large part of the fuel, and you're going to put it in the pool and put in fresh fuel with other fuel. And because the other fuel has already gone through a chain reaction, it helps the other fuel get in the second gear, so to speak. So the problem is, that fuel is going to stay in the pool. It was supposed to stay there for 5, 6, 7 years. But the problem was, you don't have a repository. You didn't try ever in 75 years. And so now the pools are stuffed because you don't have anywhere else to put it. They need to keep it in a pool. So they also have what's known as a common spent fuel pool on site. So like Japan had 6 reactors at Fukushima Daiichi. And so extra fuel fuel left over that had cooled down a bit was transferred to the common spent fuel pool, which generally held around 10 million pounds. But each reactor building can hold the fuel pools. There's 2 fuel pools in each building. Each fuel pool can hold around 3,400 plus assemblies. An assembly is about 100 fuel rods at 18 pounds each, around 1,800 pounds assembly, times 3,400 assemblies, around 6 million pounds. But there's 2 pools at the top of each buildings. They're hemorrhaging decades of reactor cores, splitting the atoms into the environment, and there's around 1,000 plus of these pools worldwide, hemorrhaging constantly radiation into the environment. It's not an emergency, it's a catastrophic emergency. It dwarfs everything else. And now we got to listen. Now we got Russia, of course, doing what Russia does, is pretending, or the world media pretending Russia's going to attack the nuclear power plants in Ukraine. This is ludicrous stuff. Israel is going to attack nuclear in Iran. That's real stuff. But it's ludicrous to suggest Russia is going to attack it because it's just posturing, right? They want a buffer zone. The company with a research facility in Everest will collaborate with the Japan Atomic Energy Agency. This is Bill Gates. He owns it, but he's not going to show up for work. Nuclear energy developer TerraPower partners with genocide machine known as Japan. So why doesn't TerraPower work with American companies? Why do you got to bring a Japanese company to America for? The whole story is frightening, really. Bill Gates is, by definition, the last person anybody on this planet would want to trust. Bill to lift ban on nuclear power heads to the governor's desk. We just covered that, didn't we? Oh, yeah, we did. I went up instead of down. Nuclear fusion startup lures Japanese investors in global push. Again, we see them get extraordinary amounts. Startup developing nuclear fusion technology got $17 million from Japanese investors and banks. So here's the bank lending money to a fusion company that has no hope of producing something. But legitimate people trying to get money from the same bank to start up legitimate businesses can't get a nickel out of them. The fusion technology has been studied for decades. Scientists so far have been unable to generate more energy than the amount required to carry out the process. It's much more complicated than that, and the industry has been jolted with excitement in recent months amid growing urgency to tackle climate change. And this is a new narrative we've only seen show up in the last 4 weeks or something, where all of a sudden fusion needs to be brought online to tackle climate change. Small modular reactors need to be brought online to tackle climate change. Nuclear renaissance needs to happen to tackle climate change. But none of them will say that compressed air storage, pumped hydro storage, geothermal electricity, and tidal zone electricity needs to be ramped up to tackle climate change. No, because they can do that, right? They can actually make that work right away within 12 months. Whereas fusion and small modular reactors are way, way in the future. The pro-nuclear is lunatics. It's actually lunatics. A group of lenders. And look at how stupid they actually look. Look how stupid these people actually look. Ah, yes, ice water. Will there ever be anything better? Prime Minister Scumbag in Japan said in early January, nuclear fusion will be part of the government's clean energy strategy. Something that doesn't exist anywhere on the planet will be their strategy, yeah? What a shit for brain industry is all I can say. Nuclear freeze documents digitized. The lady in the middle, Randall Fosberg, papers now are going to be somehow made public. The late scholar / activist Randall Fosberg once roused a crowd of more than 700,000 protesters in New York Central Park. Well, they weren't all there to see her, they were there to see other people too. Calling for an end to the nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union. We will not quietly stand by and watch our world go up in flames and radiation, the late scholar had said. So recently, Cornell University Libraries launched an online selection of recorded and written speeches, testimonies, and correspondence by Fosberg, who was a leader in the international nuclear freeze movement and the founder and director at the Boston-based Institute for Defense and Disarmament Studies. So the question is, why are you waiting? Why did you wait so long? Really, right? Why did he wait this long? And that's the official page where you can get the collection, find the collection yourself. So you'll have to type in that there to find it probably, but at least you know where to look if you're interested. I will go through that in increments over time, for sure. As if I don't already got enough on my plate. New nuclear power sources needed now. New nuclear power sources needed now. Opinion. Well, why not new compressed air storage? Why not new pumped hydro? Why not new geothermal? Why not new tidal zone? Why not new other technologies that are considered renewables? Why does it always got to be nuclear? Why is nuclear the only thing on the planet? Right? You know, like they got 75 years of just destroying the ecosystem. You can go back to the destruction of all the species, to the nuclear testing, and you can see the incredible decline from there on. He said, I was surprised to see Mike Garrity's op-ed in January 28, time to say goodbye to nuclear power. Also in other Montana newspapers. Yeah, and you see this connotations all the time where if media runs an anti-nuclear story, all kinds of media comes out and freaks out. Well, why would they run that for? What the hell is wrong with them? It's like they can't believe somebody ran an anti-nuclear story and then all the nuclear industry has to come out and scream at the same time. Because they own most of the media, see? Like the people that put their names on these articles are not typically the people that wrote the article. The articles are usually written by the degenerate monsters in the nuclear industry. This piece of work of art here, Scumbag, when you read that story, you realize that's a scumbag. That's an actual scumbag right there. 100% lie after lie after lie to get his own way, yeah? You can imagine what he does in the real world, people like that. Swedish government decides where to store nuclear waste. Yeah, by the middle of 2080, they figure they'll have it ready to go. And they show you pictures of drums and decides where to store spent nuclear fuel. You're not going to put spent nuclear fuel in 45-gallon drums. It wouldn't have been very hard to get a picture of a cache, would it? It'll be put in 6,000 copper canisters. Right, and so this was the Nuclear Waste Management Organization here in Canada had a couple of their local pinheads. Let me see if I can find it for you, actually. Had a couple of their local pinheads. I'll bring it up for you. Just give me a minute. A couple of their local pinheads came out and claimed that a copper canister would last 1,000,000 years. Probably you can find it. Would last 1,000,000 years. Here it is. No, right there. Of course, nuclear engineering. If you ever know what a scumbag is, nuclear engineering and the world nuclear news sites, here's the two scumbags, degenerates. Research review by Canadian Nuclear Waste Management Organization found that copper coating undergoes little corrosion and can maintain its role in containment of nuclear fuel. Hang on. Its findings confirmed a copper coating on a Nuclear Waste Management Organization designed container for used nuclear fuel is robust and thick enough to withstand any corrosive effects for over 1,000,000 years. And if you go to the Egyptian pharaohs and mummies, you see lots of copper in those tombs that are only a couple of thousand years old, and they're completely degraded. For over 1,000,000 years. And where's the numbers on this? Yeah, 0.25 millimeters. So 0.25 millimeters. It's like 1/10 of an inch or something worth of copper is going to protect unbelievable volatile nuclear waste for 1,000,000 years. It's literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But hey, when you got a powerful organization and a couple of degenerate scumbags like these two, Mutt and Jeff, the two scumbags of Canada. Right, so if you're a nuclear company, like the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, instead of being honest or truthful or sincere, you hire a couple of perpetual lawyers who tells you that 1/10 of an inch of copper is not going to break down over 1,000,000 years with actual gamma shines, X-rays, neutron bombardments. So all nuclear reactors should just have a little coat of copper on it. They're going to be good for 1,000,000 years. Don't ever come up and say that to my face, because I'll kick your teeth down your throat, you despicable, disgusting parasites. Over around 70 years, in 70 years' time, the site will eventually be a final destination. They figure it'll take about 60 years to build it. And they're going to build it right under a power plant under the ocean. So when it finally melts down, the ocean will flood it. Some scientists criticized the decision, warned copper capsules might not last forever. 1,000,000 years. This is ludicrous to even suggest that it's going to last 10 years. And this is the group here, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, encouraged by the Swedish facility. Now, why is that a headline? Because they seize on anything in their desperation to look lucid. It's kind of perpetual lies. Gaslog applauds proposed green taxonomy for natural gas and nuclear. A European Commission proposal to include natural gas, nuclear power in the green taxonomy would yield benefits from environmental and energy security perspectives, according to the head of the global liquefied natural gas shipper, Gaslog Partners. So first off, Gaslog Partners LP, shut your pie holes. You know nothing about nuclear. Stick to gas and keep your mouth shut about this topic. You know nothing about the topic, so shut your pie holes. Nuclear power plants work. How nuclear power plants work. Hot monster piss from Morong. An important fact about nuclear energy, embarrassing to both scientists and engineers, is how wasteful of energy it actually is. As wasteful as coal-fired plants. No, it's way worse than that. It's only 5% efficient. The fuel, and then when it's running, it's only 35% efficient. Nuclear power plants are strange monsters. You got that one right. Offspring of crude steam engines that started in the industrial age, married to the ultra-sophisticated technology that splits the atom and obliterated Hiroshima and Nagasaki 76 years ago. So nuclear reactors just heat water and steam by splitting atoms, just like cold in an old cowboy movies that firemen frantically shovel to run a train away from Indians. You don't really hear that very often, do you? Brussels faces greenwashing scrutiny over gas and nuclear. Yes, popular mechanics. If it's in popular mechanics, it's going to be evil. That's one thing we learned, isn't it? Because popular mechanics got bought by a lobbying group. We got a poll tonight, everybody. Should nuclear regulators have to work at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear meltdowns? And of course, one of the regulators was here and voted no. But I mean, why wouldn't you work at nuclear meltdown if you're a nuclear regulator? Isn't that a great idea? Doesn't that even that makes great sense to me. Go down to the Fukushima nuclear meltdown and you get to see what it's like with your own two eyes. How can that be bad? Really, how can that be bad? Well, you get cancer and die, hopefully, but I mean, like, if you honestly want to be a regulatory, you should go to work at Fukushima for a couple of days and give the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society a day off, shouldn't you? The Navy's new armored caboose will protect nuclear waste. Again, this is a fantasy. that usually when you ship nuclear waste, you got to ship it in a 50,000 ton, 100,000 pound container of steel and cement to shield the truck driver and the public on the highways from the radiation. That's how you do it and why you do it. So shipping it in a train caboose, it's not like they haven't done it before. How many suicide bombers does it take to equal one of these bad boys? Allah Akbar! Dutch MEP slams Brussels' decision to label gas. And so you're seeing a bit of a blowback now against EU. But what happened was France took over the EU presidency on January the 1st of this year for 6 months. So that's why last year they delayed it twice, because France wanted to be the presidency, because France is ruthless. The people in France, in the nuclear industry, they're ruthless. They'll kill every species on the planet so they can get an extra $2 a month on their pension. Several Dutch MEPs have condemned the European Commission's decision to include gas and nuclear power on a list of green invention. Where did that go? On a list of green investments. Nuclear is needed to provide a stable supply of energy at times of little wind. Right, suggesting wind power, obviously, right? Nuclear is needed to provide a stable supply of energy at times of wind. If you use geothermal with wind, you'd always have backup energy at your fingertips, right? If you use tidal energy with your wind and your solar, you always had a steady supply. You don't need batteries. And you don't need batteries. You can use pumped hydro and compressed air, where you have mine shafts and you compress air into the mine shaft at 120 psi. And because you're doing it that way, you can put a lot of air down there. And so one of the tricks they discovered was the air coming up. If you burn a bit of gas, the heat the air when it's coming up, it would expand dramatically. And so now you can stretch out your compressed air to a week or two. And Luxembourg passed a law 2 years ago that if you get sick within 30 years of a nuclear power plant accident, you can sue the nuclear power plant. Yeah? That's impressive. Austria and Luxembourg have already said they will take legal action if the proposal is passed by the European Parliament. It's still got to get through the European Parliament, but nobody expects them to say no. Newest nuclear-powered icebreaker competes first working voyage on the Yenisei. Project 22220 Universal nuclear-powered icebreakers are the world's largest and most powerful ice-breaking ships. And it ran through 1.5 meters or something. 1.5 meters, and did not affect the icebreaker's commercial speed. Now like the Lenin icebreaker in Russia, they actually dumped a reactor core in the Arctic, which is not a big surprise because they already got 18,000 dumps of nuclear in the Arctic. Real great stewards, eh? They scuttled entire ships full of nuclear waste in the Arctic. Questions and answers on the EU taxonomy. Complementary Climate Delegated Act. Climate Delegated Act. And so all of that is meant, right, to reinforce their fake narrative that nuclear is somehow able to help the climate. See? And it's not necessarily subtle, but it is subtly seen everywhere. The goal of the EU taxonomy is to prevent greenwashing. So why did you put nuclear there? That's greenwashing. The exact thing they wanted to stop was the first thing they done with it. Unbelievable. EC keeps a deadline for nuclear in taxonomy, European Committee. Nuclear option allowing state takeover local school districts. Nuclear option. So nuclear is always used for bad, isn't it? Financing in place for European Shine isotope plant. Another genocide machine about to open up in the Netherlands. Has secured funding to begin designing an advanced medical genocide isotope production facility. The definition of evil is nuclear in medicine. New uses for old information and emergency preparedness and response perspective. Nuclear power is becoming prevalent in discussions how to limit global warming. Or global heating, as Jan Light Scumbag said. It was notable that the International Atomic Energy Agency, aka United Nations, appeared during Constipated 26 party, COP26. Really, it was notable that the International Atomic Energy Agency went down there and tried to... They've done that, they've always done that. And nuclear can't limit global warming. Nuclear is global warming. Fukushima radioactive fallout is global warming. Pulsing energy every second at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. Invisible plume worldwide. We can't have a future with nuclear, is the real reality. There is no future with nuclear for no species, and that's immediate. The only solution is to attack nuclear constantly from every direction as a collective. The Ranger mines in Australia, rehabilitation costs and schedule. It'll never come in cost, it'll never come in on schedule. It's going to be USD 1.6 billion around, they claim. They expect it to be completed in late 2027, late 2028. Now, their uranium was used in Fukushima nuclear plants when they melted down. So they can never clean up. They can never clean up the emissions from all the power plants worldwide that use their radiation. All their uranium used for fuel, there's still no repository anywhere on the planet. Everybody on the planet should sue that company for destroying their ecosystem. That pond you see there is a chemical pond. And all they ever do with these things is evaporate it. If this was an oil refinery or a coal plant or something like that, they would have to put this on a toxic site and pay for it. Because it's nuclear, they're allowed to evaporate it into the environment. Bias against scumbag nuclear energy could hurt New Mexico. And then Holtec who's a new decommissioning company. And they're going to do it 60 years quicker than any other company. And they do that, like you see in Cape Cod Bay, they want to dump 1 million gallons of radioactive water from the Pilgrim nuclear plant. Just dump it in the bay. Unprecedented. Yeah, we take shortcuts. That's what we do. We're Holtec. UK preparing for exo-atmospheric space wars. It's United Kingdom, so you don't really want... If it's written by United Kingdom, it's basically going to be lies. It's really something, you know. If it's from a United Kingdom university or United Kingdom media or United Kingdom government, you know for sure it's guaranteed propaganda and it's guaranteed lies. It's unbelievable. After covering this for years and years and years, I literally groan whenever I see something from United Kingdom because you know it's going to be propaganda and fear-mongering and lies. But basically, they want to put their weapons in space before somebody else does. See? That's what that's all about. But they don't frame it that way. They frame it that, oh, we should do that because they're going to do it. Team Canada needs to push net zero electricity grid, which is nuclear, they're talking about. Team Canada. It's really despicable to do what they're doing there. The 2022 Beijing Olympic Winter Games, once athletes begin competing, Canadians across the country will come together to cheer on Team Canada. That's not true. Jack shit in Canada is going to watch that. But they want to use that now to pump nuclear energy's narrative. And the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is scumbag United Nations again, head urges more countries to strengthen global nuclear non-proliferation regime. But all they do is proliferate. That's what IAEA does. They're not regulatory agencies. They're part of the United Nations, which is 193 militaries. So the IAEA job is to promote nuclear and stop anything that makes nuclear look bad, like me and you, right? Renewable beat coal and nuclear, but still lags behind oil and gas. Right? And that's the whole problem, isn't it? We're if you use renewables with geothermal and tidal power, you don't need no storage, and you have reliable 24/7 energy at your fingertips. If you also pair it with wind, if you paired wind and solar with geothermal and tidal power for storage, not storage for backup energy, but also with pumped hydro and compressed air, that's a win, right? Don't matter how big your city is, that's going to work perfectly every time. It's a win, right? That's the winning combination. So if you use 6 technologies, use wind and solar with compressed air and pumped hydro for storage, and also geothermal and tidal energies. That's a win for every country on the planet. They took that model. That's 100%. Way more energy you're ever going to need. It's 100% win. It's 100 billion win. It's an incredible win for the whole planet. So we got to kind of push that. And so I'm thinking about T-shirts lately a lot. Can that work for what I'm doing? Will people buy T-shirts if I start producing T-shirts? Because my T-shirts are not going to be like your average T-shirts, I can assure you. I am so... Hang on. Where the hell did that go? One of my T-shirts will say, "Stop the chemotherapy genocide. Use DCA." Another T-shirt, "Use the DCA ban, or end the DCA ban in Canada and make the DCA cancer cure legal again." And another T-shirt, "End the Fukushima Unit 4 deception." And another T-shirt, "Save the whales, ban nuclear power plants." And another T-shirt, "Save the insects, ban nuclear power plants." They're going to shit bricks when I come out with this stuff. It's coming. I got a big list of it now. And so once I start doing something like that, then that's just the way it's going to be. Okay. So my goodness, last night was a crazy show, wasn't it? So people like those kind of T-shirts? I got better ideas than that, but that's just 5 out of a whole whack I already got there. Dale P says he'd buy 10 T-shirts. Wow. That's pretty cool. Unfortunately, like, for me to do that, it's $20 to get the shirt printed. Whether I bring my own shirt or use their shirts is still $20. Nuclear lies are hot, hot, hot. Just checking out. Dana Nasana is gone for the show. Yeah, Saved Whales is a good one, isn't it? Yeah. We're almost through this now. We just got a few more minutes to go. I'm going to play the little video in a few minutes here. Bill to help build small nuclear reactors in Indiana passes the Senate. Cannibal Decibel Fest Philly 2022 lineup. Nuclear assault. You see that showing up in a lot of heavy metal bands, connotations of nuclear? Because that's part of the industry, loves doing stuff like that. That's why a lot of them get signed. Russia's small nukes are a big problem. Chalk River Laboratories looks ahead to an environmentally conscious future. Because they ain't got an environmentally conscious past. They're on a major freshwater site, uphill from it. Everything runs downhill into that. It's one of the world's first nuclear meltdowns. They're still trying to remediate there 70 years later. Its entire legacy is polluting the planet. Its entire history, and now it's run by Americans, not even Canadian. Nuclear power not only spares us greenhouse emissions, it confers energy independence to the Australians. And my goodness, the Australian media, the Australian media is a lunatic. It's actually a lunatic. They're like, I've never seen it's Australia rather, New Zealand and United Kingdom are the three worst governments, universities and medias I've ever seen. Canada's brutal, don't get me wrong, but the Australian is just nasty people. Hanford begins the first large-scale treatment of nuclear tank waste. They actually dumped 50 plus billion gallons directly into the soil. They actually got 41 miles of unlined trenches of nuclear waste, legacy nuclear waste at Hanford. Hanford used to take retired employees and retired government employees, make them sit in farmers' fields in the direction where the wind was blown, and when they would have major releases, they would vent, and they would take them out of old age homes and bring them to fields and sit them in chairs and stuff like that. And then the radiation would be released. It was really, like, what the hell, right? And they were doing all kinds of experiments on prisoners from Hanford. Hanford also is 580 square mile nuclear wasteland, and it's on the Columbian River. There's one spot on the Columbia River where it was over 70 sieverts an hour on the shoreline, which is a major salmon river too. So imagine being salmon fishing and you stop in front of 70 sievers for a few minutes and then you move along and then you die later that day or the next day. Your organ starts to melt. It's unbelievable really what Hanford done and continues to do. Evil doesn't really do it justice, is not really able to do it justice. USAF and Navy may pursue separate nuclear aircrafts. Brussels weathers the backlash. Of course, you knew that was coming. Nuclear Electrica subsidiary Pitsea nuclear fuel plant celebrates 30 years of misery. How can you celebrate 30 years of polluting the planet and pretending you're a good person? What kind of disconnect is that? World will not achieve net zero unless massive shift in nuclear occurs. Well, like, nuclear is the climate change. Yeah, other things are contributing to climate change, but nuclear is overload. Nuclear is like the radioactive fallout covering the entire planet, and they're calling it green. Because that's how evil works, right? North Korea faces further sanctions, isolations. Fusion reactor bid moves forward at United Kingdom judges visit Copeland. That's Sellafield in the background, for goodness sakes. Surrounded by farms on top of that. There's lunatics and then there's the nuclear industry. Iranian supertanker carrying condensate docks in Venezuela. And these are satellite pictures. Ukraine tensions, U.S. boosts troops in Europe. Adrian Davis says no to Ukraine war. There's not going to be a Ukraine war. To the best of my understanding. I was trying to find why that showed up in the search engines. It was down below. A mission to go above, beyond in decommissioning and recycling. Among its many triumphs, Dales Marine successfully decommissioned and recycled the motor vessel Oceanic Pintail. Launched in 1987, the vessel was owned by the Nuclear Decommission Authority and was operated by his transport business, Nuclear Transport Solution. Is that the same one that was going out and dumping? Is that the same one that was going out and dumping nuclear waste into the ocean, I wonder? By the Nuclear Decommission Authority. What would the Nuclear Decommission Authority be doing with a large vessel? And safely decommission, it means implying it's highly radioactive, right? North Korea concert glorifies Kim's power. Yeah, well, that's how it works, don't it? Every country does that. And North Korea scratches behind her ear. The whole world's media comes here screaming, "Hey, we're scratching behind his ear. We're not sure. We think it's a subtle message and a threat to America." Earth may have narrowly avoided a devastating comet impact 1,600 years ago. Really? This is what you do for a living? You write shit like that? While Iran and America negotiate, Israel prepares for a strike, and not a strike, a bombing run on a nuclear power plant. God help us if he does that. It'll fulfill their prophecy, don't want it? The world will turn on them. Visit to the new cyclotron of the Center for Nuclear Medicine. That's revolting. Use DCA, don't use nuclear. Nuclear is a genocide machine. For God's sakes, don't use nuclear. And we only got 10, 12 more, 12 more clicks. Then we'll watch the videos and we'll say, Vigiachi. Plant life extensions, plant life management, nuclear. NATO nuclear mission to continue as long as Russia has nuclear weapons. NATO is a bunch of countries that got together. They're a gang of countries, right? And it should be illegal to do what they're doing, but apparently it's not. Atoms for peace. He said, I have to decide Japanese strategy. Shall we invade Japan proper, or shall we bomb and blockade? That is the hardest decision to date. Well, I'll make it when I have all the facts. No. There's overwhelming evidence they didn't need to use the nuclear weapons. Overwhelming evidence now. U.S. and NATO confirmed non-deployment of nuclear weapons. Who's going to believe that, really? Who's gullible enough to going to believe that? Nuclear medicine system market and dry interim storage for spent nuclear fuel market. Like, there is no radiopharmaceuticals. This is a genocide machine, period. Hunter Women's Chronicle. Think about the name of this site, Hunter Women's Chronicle, and they promote endless nuclear. Yeah, endless nuclear. Okay, so let's play the video. We picked up the quad today. It was around 4 o'clock this afternoon. I got a message. It was ready. And let's just play through this and we'll finish the show out then. It's Wednesday, around 4 p.m. So I'm hooking up the trailer. The quad is ready. All I gotta do is hook up the rest of my wires, strap down my ramp, and away we go. Okay, so the bike is ready. I'm ready. I just gotta hook up the ramp. Okay, we got the ramp down on the ground. Let's go get the quad. Come on, baby. I'm excited. We got this working again. That's been a pain in the ass. I like it a lot. Let's get her going. And put it in low. Get it all the way up in low. So let's get her done. A little wheelie. All right. We'll put on the brake here. There's a little latch there that I can't do by holding on to this. The old gimbal though makes for a nice shot, don't it? So, winch. Winch. I don't normally like laying down the gimbal. But we need the winch. More. More. Hot damn, I'm excited. I'm super excited we got this back. Woo. That's probably tight enough, is it? We got a bunch of straps in the back. I should take it to the car wash while I got it on the trailer. So we got it through the car wash. Weehaw! We'll head home and get Wednesday's show ready. I'll have to take it for a quick drive when I get home, but take it for a quick drive just to make sure it heats up and dries out. The wind will blow dry it. I'm just worried that that crack in the windshield, I don't know if you can see it, there's a big crack in the windshield with my head when I put it down in the hole. It's all good. Let's go home. Okay, we're home. We get the straps off it. We got the straps off it. And we got the straps off. And we're going to take it now and see if we can make sure it works good. That's in the garage. Those lights worked out really good, didn't they? Look how bright those lights actually are that we got for it. It's 100%. You can work there in the middle of the night. Perfect visibility. That's the boat to the left. There was almost dark at that time. What I didn't realize was that it was going to get dark on the way home. The temperature right now is pretty cold. So when I got home, everything was frozen. All the straps were frozen. The brakes were frozen. My door to my house was frozen. Because I have a lock for the trailer for the hitch. That was frozen. I couldn't get the trailer unhitched. I had to go and boil the kettle, come out. And we also got 3 donations last night. 4. James Lucet donated 60 Canadian. Thank you, James. You're awesome, my friend. And Jim, I haven't got my glasses here. Jim N, I hope. Donated 25, so I got that. Jim, thank you. Cody donated $50. And Colette donated donated $150. And it cost $320 for that to get pulled apart and replaced. A few parts. One of them was the rubber boot for the carburetor. And so it drank a lot of water. And so that was huge. We got it back. And tomorrow I'm headed in the woods. We got light snow tomorrow, but a lot more snow on Monday. Or Friday and Saturday. Fresh snow. Because we just had heavy rainfalls. Like 50 millimeters of rain. It washed away all the snow, basically, that was already down. And now it's freezing temperatures for the next week and snow every other day. So tomorrow, we got a light dusting. I'll be in the woods all day tomorrow. And I'm not sure if I'm doing a show tomorrow night or not, because it depends on how burnt out I am tomorrow in the woods. But you know me, it's pretty hard for me not to do a show. Because I work, I'm going to do the work anyway, right? But I'll get out of the woods, because it's only going to stay daylight till around 5:30. So it is getting more light each day, thank goodness. If you didn't vote, we going to close the poll here in a few seconds. Should nuclear regulators have to work at the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns? I think that's a great poll. I think that's an excellent poll, isn't it? Really? Why wouldn't nuclear regulators, should be mandatory that they work at the nuclear meltdown. They can work shoulder to shoulder with the homeless for a change. They can put it on their resume. We worked with homeless at a nuclear meltdown. Think about how good that would be. And so we're going to end that poll immediately. Nirad Yulov, Dan, have you thought about a Telegram group so folks like us can talk with you and have conversations with other supporters as well? I have. Problem was, we did have something like that a number of years ago, and it got infiltrated by the industry immediately. And it was a nightmare. I can't maintain it, right? But the big problem is I can't maintain it. If somebody else starts it up, we don't know, right, who these, unless it's one of the well-known people. The nuclear industry loves to take over these groups. And so if I don't participate all the time, the nuclear industry won't lose a beat. It'll take over that whole operation, and then it'll turn everybody in increments against me is the problem. And it's heartbreaking because that's what I would like to do. I would love to meet all kinds of people, right, like myself, because that seems to be a natural progression. But over the years, we've seen that weaponized against me so many times. I still haven't lost faith in people, though, no matter what. And so maybe I will do that. Who knows? Yeah, James Megan, Albert, Peaceware, Andrew B, Don Vincent, Dana Nasana, Colette S. Thank you again. Hugs for you again. James Lucid, hugs for you too, my friend. Tinker, Stable. Good night, everybody. I'll be in the woods tomorrow. Maybe we'll be streaming tomorrow for In the Woods. Richard McCann. I'll probably do a show tomorrow night. No guarantee at this moment. Excuse me. I think it's just because it was a very long days, last couple of days, and a long night getting ready for the show. Just looking for some names. Quick shout out, as we call it, a night. Peaceware, I think I already showed it. James Megan, I probably showed it out already. Albert, good night and hugs for everybody. And Miles, the unit. Hi, Miles. The Invisible Rabbit. Port Angeles. And so we have a civil show tonight, not too long. I don't care about how long it takes me. Whatever the news cycle is, whatever it takes, right? I'm just really super unbelievably grateful that we got the quad fixed and got it back. So I think that was amazing how that just came together in the last couple of days. How people donated and boom, went down, picked it up and got it. It was really something to get home and take it for a quick drive. And it was actually feels like it's running better than it did, because there's a boot that goes from the carburetor to the air intake, and that had a significant hole in it. So it should be better on fuel, and it definitely sounds quieter when I took it for a drive. Almost through the comments section. Just doing a quick shout out to anybody I see. Hugs for everybody else that's watching this and is not commenting and watching this later. Ella. And you folks are amazing. Robert. Hi, Robert. We're almost through. If I missed anybody, and I usually do, my apologies. Dale P. So I'm looking at t-shirts, seriously. I have a whole lot of slogans that I think are amazing. Really do tell the story. Ban nuclear, save the whales. They're going to lose their mind if I start producing shirts like that. Kathy S. We're almost through. Tree fruit. How many nuclear power plants are in Ukraine? Kathy S. asks. I think it's 14, Kathy. Ease. Almost there. Andrew B., which is CFINSTR. Niad. Your loft. I'll think about that suggestion. I'm not going to say no. I'll think about it. Maybe I can figure out a nice way to do it without wearing myself thin. Ed M. Yeah, there we go. We're at the bottom again. Chelsea. Marge. Vincent. Hi, Marge. Hope you're doing well, honey. And that looks about it for me, folks. I think I burnt out in the last couple of days because there's so much news. My eyes were starting to hurt from reading. Last night was kind of too much, 190 stories from a 24-hour cycle. Darlene. Okay, let's call it a night then. I'm pretty happy. And once again, hugs for everybody that was able to donate. We made it happen. And the money left over, I'm going to pick up a jerry can of fuel tomorrow. So that means I got 2 jerry cans of gas. The price of gas is insane. It's almost $1.70 here per liter. It's like, oh my God. Last year, this time, it was around 78 cents. That's good, Marge. I'm glad to hear it. Awesome. David Allen, thank you. And everybody else, I'm doing good, Marjorie. Thank you, honey. That's it for tonight, folks. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. There's a good chance you'll see me tomorrow night. There's a small possibility you won't. But if you don't, you'll probably get a video from out in the woods tomorrow. I'll be out on the trail tomorrow and Friday, by the looks of it for sure. Hopefully Sunday too. We got catching up to do. Good night, everybody. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you want to contribute, there's links under the video at the very bottom of the description. There's 2 links. That's the only 2 ways you can donate to me. And ever said that, have a great night, great day tomorrow. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody soon enough. Take care, folks.